Hi everyone, Darren Hunter here. Welcome to our Win Your Worth webinar series where today we're going to get right in deep on how to charge for inspections. That's ingoing or property condition reports, routine inspections, file inspections as well. Now, just a big shout out to our sponsor, Inspection Express. Definitely one of the best points of difference that I've seen in a very, very long time. Alex from Inspection Express will be a little bit later in today's session, going to be sharing with you and showing you something that all I can say is just wow. You show that to prospective clients, they're not going to care that you're charging for inspections. They're just going to want you because you've got something that they want that your rivals haven't got, or they likely won't ever do. All right, let's move on. Now, we're talking about charging today and fees. So it's always important that I give you a collusion warning. We cannot agree on what fee charges can be. It's anti-competitive and it's very, very illegal. So we can never agree on what fees should be. Now, here's what you're going to learn today. Firstly, why you can't charge why you can't charge inspection fees separately from your management fee. A lot of you right now think that, hang on, my management fee should cover this, this, and this, and especially inspection fees. We're going to deal with that one today, but also why your owners are happy to pay. In fact, I'm going to show you what the real reason is why a lot of agents aren't charging for it, and it's not owners aren't happy to pay, they are. And I'm going to explain why. But also at the end of today's session, I'm going to give you the script on how to justify these fees, even if your rivals charge absolutely nothing at all. It's going to make no difference. You're still going to be able to charge inspection fees, no problem whatsoever. So let's get into this. Now, I've been teaching this for now 20 years, and I first stumbled on how to get inspection fees and charge them right back in the year 2000 when I started with an agency in the Riverland of South Australia, which was a collection of towns just before the New South Wales-Victoria border right on the River Murray. And when I first started there in the year 2000, I'd already got several years under my belt as a property manager. And when I started with this agency, I was the property manager and also responsible for bringing in and signing up the new properties. The current fee structure at that rent roll that I started with, well, the fees are really, really low. I knew that I could do better. So for example, I had already been charging routine inspection fees for a number of years. This agency wasn't. Charging a routine inspection fee was just a no-brainer. I knew I could get it, but I also charged a final inspection fee as well. Why? I just decided that final inspections suck. They're really difficult. And why do it for free? So I just added it. And here's what's really important. Between that time and when I was promoted to state property manager for Elders 3 years later, in that 3 years that I managed this portfolio, I always charged the final inspection fee. Not once did an owner ever question that fee, and not once did my rivals ever charge it. It made zero difference because owners, you will learn, are actually focused on something else, and it's not the inspection fee. They really don't care less. As long as they've got a property manager they can trust, they're happy to pay. So I took my teaching right through Australia, and everywhere I went, of course, I had property managers saying, Darren, it's not going to work here. Owners won't pay. They only care about cheap fees. I got all of this stuff, but I found nowhere where that was actually true. When agencies did go and charge these fees, of course, I had a lot that said, no, it won't work. And that was the end of it. They just weren't even willing to give it a try. But the ones that did always found it to work. You see, I found across Australia, there was no place where I could find where it didn't work. So I took it to New Zealand. In 2009, I did it in the second largest rent roll in New Zealand at the time. They implemented inspection fees, had no problem whatsoever. And since then, I've done it with a number of agencies across New Zealand as well. Works every time, works a treat. And then I took it over to the United States. I mean, why not? I've still got to find this place where it isn't supposed to work. I couldn't find it in Australia. I couldn't find it in New Zealand. So I went to the United States, and guess what? I was disappointed again. I couldn't find anywhere where what I was teaching about charging with inspection fees and other fees, I couldn't find where it actually didn't work. I had many agencies tell me, Darren, no, owners won't pay. They only care about cheap fees. But Darren, our rivals aren't charging those fees. We can't. What's the management fee for, Darren? All of those mindset blockages, but I could never find the place where it actually didn't work. And to this day, I still can't. Now, right now, you're probably tempted to think, but Darren, that's all good and well. It works across Australia. It works across New Zealand. It works across the United States, but it won't work in my rent roll because. So that's what we're going to deal with now. We're going to deal with this big elephant in the room with the big but. All right. And so, firstly, understand the law of the fee lid. What's simply happening here is that right now, if you're saying, but Darren, that won't work in my rent roll because, and you've got your, but Darren, what's the management fee for? Or, but Darren, owners only care about cheap fees. Or, but Darren, I can't charge any extra fees like inspection fees because none of my rivals do. Therefore, I can't. Well, that's you simply obeying the law of the fee lid. And what's the law of the fee lid? Well, it's very simple. Your fees right now are the very, very best that you can do. You can't do any better. Because if you could, you would, but you're not. All right? Because if I said to you, well, hang on, you could add some inspection fees or you could do this, or, but Darren, it's not going to work because, and so your big buts are what stops you moving forward. That's simply the law of the fee lid. And probably one of my favorite quotes here that I use time and time again. This proves, the law of the fee lid proves, you can never, ever earn what you're worth. You'll never will. You'll only ever earn what you believe that you're worth. And my job today is change what you believe. All right. So let's just focus on that. Okay. Now let's get into the big but. So again, the law of the fee lid, what's your reason why you can't? Well, but Darren, what's the management fee for? That's a real big one, particularly when we're talking about inspection fees, like a routine inspection fee on the east coast of Australia. Oh my goodness me. So many agents just want to stone me with this one because they strongly believe that the management fee should cover that, and in fact offended if I suggest otherwise. We're going to deal with that one today. Also, our owners only care about cheap fees. That's a real big problem a lot of agents have that stops them simply going to do what I'm telling you is really, really easy to do. All right. But also, my rivals don't charge those fees, Darren. So if they can't do it or they're not doing it, I can't either. So they're benchmarking themselves on what their rivals are not doing. And I know that you charging for inspection fees is going to work. But let's just pull these big butts and let's start this journey of breaking down these wrong and false mindsets. So number one, the biggest one, but Darren, what's the management fee for? Why are we going to charge a routine inspection fee? We shouldn't be charging that. What's the management fee for? We've always charged under that. Now, my question to you is that I've never ever found the rule book that tells you what you must charge under the management fee, because there isn't one. And if you can find one, send it to me. I'd love to have a look at it. I've been searching for it for 20 years. And so if there's no rule book, there's no legislation, there's no law, what is it? It's your mindset. And of course, there's a market mindset where agents very commonly across East Coast Australia won't charge separately for inspections because they honestly believe it should be under the management fee. It's a market mindset. But we know the agents that are charging it, and you're going to hear some stories today, they're getting it just like that. All right, it's never a problem, even when all their rivals aren't charging anything. So my question to you, if you're one of those people that, no, Darren, you can't be charging for those inspection fees, what's the management fee for? My question to you is if inspection fees should be charged as part of your management fee, and that is your rule, that is your stance, that is your mindset. My question to you is, why are you charging a leasing fee separately then? Why haven't you also included that in your management fee? Why are you charging that separate? Why are you charging a lease renewal fee or a marketing fee or a monthly admin fee or some other fee as well? Why has those things escaped the management fee? And I think we can all agree this is all mindset, right? This is your mindset that you've decided something that doesn't necessarily have to be. It's if you decide that it needs to be part of the management fee? Well, it will be part of the management fee. If you decide that you should charge it separately, well, guess what? You can charge it separately. It's really just a mindset. There's no other force that's stopping you. Now, here's another thing to consider. Debt collection agencies. They charge 20 to 30% to go and chase a debt. All right. Now, how much should the rent collection that you do, how much could you justify that? Now, what I mean by that is if rent collection in itself is a very soft form of debt collection. It's not like you take rent 12 months in advance or 6 months in advance. No, the tenant pays a week ahead or 2 weeks ahead or a month ahead at a time on a promise that at the end of that period, they're going to pay again. And if they don't, then you've got process and procedure in place at 1 day, 2 days, 3 days behind, 5 days behind we do this, 7 days behind we do this. And there's a legal process that kicks into place that can, at its extreme, end in eviction. It's a process that you're educated on, that you're experienced on, and you're licensed to do as well. Don't you think that's worth something? And if a debt collection agency, which is a different kind and a more extreme kind of debt collection than rent collection, is charging 20 to 30%, then don't you think your 5 or 6 or 7 or 8% management fee that you're charging right now is enough to justify just rent collection alone? It's something to think about, isn't it? And that's why a lot of agents that I'm working with right now are changing and not calling it a management fee, but calling it a rent collection fee. Freeing up their mindset that it's okay to charge other things as well. Let's move on. Now, let's deal with, but Darren, that's all good and well. Okay, we might be able to charge these things separately now, but owners only care about cheap fees. Let's deal with this one. Now, one thing you need to understand, when they come to you, they're anxious and they're concerned about getting a bad tenant. Now, if they thought they could do it themselves, they wouldn't be talking to you. They'll be happy to self-manage, but there's a reason why they're looking for a property manager, and it's because they're scared of getting a bad tenant. They're scared of the rent not being paid and the property not being looked after. And to get a quality tenant that's going to pay the rent on time and look after it, they need a quality property manager to go with it. And that's why they're speaking to you. They're losing sleep over these issues because they're not experienced. They know they have to get the right agent. Here's my point. They're not losing sleep over cheap fees. All right, they really aren't. They're not thinking, oh, tomorrow I hope is the day that I can find that property manager that's going to charge me a cheap fee. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about getting that quality tenant, and therefore we need a quality property manager. There's a couple of things I'm going to explain here to prove this to you. Now, number one, we did a poll into the AUS Property Investors Group, okay? And we asked this very simple question: when it comes to choosing a property manager, what's the most important thing to you? And I asked and I put in 2 questions, either one or the other. One, that they're a quality, reliable property manager. That's the most important thing they're looking for. And number 2 is cheap or cheaper fees. All right, is either one or the 2. Is it cheaper fees that's more important, as in owners only care about cheap fees? Let's just see. Or are they really after a quality, reliable property manager? Now, very early in the poll, Adam here added in, well, a third selection, well, why not have the best of both worlds, a combo of both? Fair enough. Now, we know you can't have a quality agent and cheap fees in the same place, but Adam says, why not? Okay, fair enough. Now, Mark said, well, I want someone that's not managing excessive properties. They want someone that's going to care for them and not be overworked. Well, okay, but can we all agree then that that's actually part of number 1? And then Hayden came up and said, well, I want a property manager that's not afraid to get market rents. I think he wants a quality, reliable property manager, don't you? And then John said, well, I want someone that knows tenancy laws and knows how to get around them. Now, we're not here to breach legislation, right? We wouldn't do that. And we're not breaching legislation for anyone, let alone one client. But they obviously want someone that knows legislation because they're getting inexperienced people. So yes, it's fair to say that what John wants is a quality, reliable property manager. And then this person down the bottom, how long would they last with? such and such agency. In other words, they're sick and tired of property managers turning over. Well, what do they really want? They want a reliable quality property manager. So at the end of this poll, 90% of people wanted a quality, reliable property manager. They didn't want cheap or cheaper fees as their number one most important issue. All righty. So owners only care about cheap fees. It's wrong. It's just not correct. It's a wrong mindset that we are here to set straight. They are after a quality, reliable property manager. And when they come to you, all right, that's the foremost motive that is in mind. That's their number one pain point and need. So you might say, well, Darren, okay, well, why do they always ask for discounts? Well, it's because you work in real estate and they just have a need to negotiate. Just like you do when you're buying something on Facebook Marketplace. Don't you always ask for a better price? Or when you go to Bali, you're going to ask for a bargain on that bag or dress or t-shirt, aren't you? You're going to ask for a better price because bargaining is what you do when you go to Bali. All right. Well, asking for a better fee is what you do when you do a real estate transaction, just like what you would do if you go and buy a house tomorrow. Okay. So you got to understand that real estate fees in a lot of people's mind is simply fair game and they're out to get a better rate. That's all, is a need to negotiate. But once you can satisfy with a really good response, their primary motive comes to the service, which is they really want a quality, reliable property manager. Okay. Now, here is another more proof that what I'm saying is true. So Ashley Goodchild, who's in our IGT Inner Circle, that's IGT Inner Circle. Now, if you want to join, just go to the IGT Inner Circle Facebook group. Make sure you answer the 3 questions because we've got people that are anti-agent that want to join our group or join other groups and just cause trouble. So we need to make sure with the questions there, we can do a quick background check on you to make sure that you do work in the property management industry and you can come on in. But Ashley just did a video today around an experiment she's been doing. Now, some months ago, she was at the hairdresser and she saw the hairdresser offering 3 different prices on getting a hair done. Now, number 1, the cheapest price was if you want to get it done with the apprentice. Number 2 was getting it done with the hairdresser in the shop. And number 3, if you want the boss to cut your hair. They all got different prices. And she thought, what a good idea. So when owners came to her and said, hey, look, can you match your fee with the other agent, or the other agent is cheaper, the usual, as you know, she was able to say, look, if it's cheaper fees that you're after, well, we've got our apprentice property manager here. She hasn't got much experience, but we can give you a cheaper fee. And the video today that she was doing into the group was simply giving us the numbers that 90% of owners, when they were confronted with that, said, no, don't worry about it. I would like to have an experienced property manager, and therefore we're happy to pay the full fees and not a cheaper rate. So can we all agree here when we say, but Darren, owners only care about cheap fees? It's just not true. All right. And they have a need to negotiate. That's what makes you think they only care about cheap fees, but it's not. It's a thin veneer. It's just a veil that's easily pulled away to expose what they really want, which is a quality property manager. Now, 5% of owners do care about cheap fees, but they're the sort of owners that you don't want to deal with. They're those C-class landlords that are unreasonable and over demanding and take up huge amounts of your time with frivolous requests, and whatever the rent is, they want more, and whatever your fees are, or they want less, and they won't put any money into the property to keep it in good condition. They won't really repair the things that need to be repaired, and they end up with a crap property that ends up attracting a crap tenant, and they generally have a low rent property too, which means it's very low fee earning property. It's all bad. And here is a good saying for you. If a good tenant doesn't want to rent it, why would you want to manage it? All right. So there are 5% of clients out there that you don't want to deal with, but 95% is enough, isn't it, for you to focus on? And they're the ones that want a quality, reliable property manager. They're not losing sleep over cheap fees. So let's just put that big but to rest. Okay. So we've kicked 2 big butts so far. Number 1, what's the management fee for? Can we just agree that that's a silly mindset that you don't need to have? Number 2 is, but Darren, owners only care about cheap fees. Let's keep going, because probably the biggest one I come across is this one. But Darren, my rivals don't charge inspection fees, or they charge less if they're charging less than you. And that could be in Western Australia, where all agents they charge for ingoing property condition reports, routine inspections, and of course outgoing inspections. But your rivals may be charging less. But in most cases, you'll find your rivals aren't charging these inspection fees. Let's just deal with this big but. So firstly, understand the law of the main game. Two owners at a barbecue, they're having a chat about property management. One guy says, well, who's managing your property? Well, I'm with ABC Real Estate. Oh my goodness me, I'm with XYZ Realty just down the road. Fancy that. What are you getting charged? Well, I'm getting charged 8%. Oh, really? I'm getting charged 7%. But they didn't talk about any other fees. Here is the wrong mindset. We think as agents that owners are equally critical and focused on the management fee, as well as the leasing fee, as well as the lease renewal fee, as well as your monthly admin fee, and as well as all those other fees. It is simply not the case. They only really care about or focus on the management fee. Now, how do we know that? Well, think about every time you get asked a discount or an owner pops the question to get a better fee, what fee are they focused on? I know that absolutely more than 70% are focused on the management fee but the other agent is cheap, or if you can match your fee with the other agent, it's always about the management fee, isn't it? And then when they're looking at the management fee, it's usually a 1% discount. It's very predictable. That's the law of the main game at work here. Now, if you go to the bank for a bank loan, what are you fixated on? What are you focused on? You're focused on that monthly payment and the interest rate. But did you get carried away or focused on the annual fees that they charge you and maybe some monthly fees? I bet you couldn't even tell me what they were. There you go, the law of the main game at work. All right, we could go to a number of different places. What about when you want to get a gym membership? When you go to the gym, what are you fixated on? What are you focused on? The weekly payment. But did you go on about that 3 monthly admin fee that they charge you, or the joining fee? Alrighty, so understand the law of the main game. Owners aren't fixated on all your fees. They really don't know what they are. They just want to know your management fee is a rack rate normal. They'll try and pop the question for a 1% discount to make them feel better with a need to negotiate, and you just need to come back with a really strong response. But things like inspection fees are something that just hangs off the bottom, that if they think you're a good quality agent, they're not going to care about those little trivial matters. That's the way they think. So we've got to make sure that we don't think contrary to that, thinking that owners will resist us. It's not the case. And this is how we can charge fees that are different from what your competitors do, and it won't make a difference. You see, when we do secret fee shopping, and I'm looking at a typical suburb with 7 or 8 agents, and they're all got that different type of management fee. You know, one's charging 6, one's charging 7, one's charging 8, and they're all sort of within that 6 to 8, 9% swing. Well, then the leasing fees is some sort of consistency, but the rest, it's all over the shop. It's all different. It's all mixed. Why? Because they're set in accordance with what they believe they're worth on those fees. Okay. And so you adding your different fees to the mix on the other stuff won't make any difference to the transaction dynamics. Okay, let's move on. Now, I was dealing with an agency in Tasmania where I was training them to put in a routine inspection fee. They'd never done it before, and no one in town had ever charged one either. That BDM had about 10 years experience and simply said, well, I'm not going to get business anymore. Owners aren't going to pay. And he refused to take it on board and actually resigned. Now, that was really sad, right? Because it was all fantasy land. Of course he's going to get it. And so I trained the team leader with the team, and they had leads coming in. They didn't have a BDM. So she went out, put the hat on, and went out. And guess what? The first deal, bang, she got. The second deal, bang, she got. And they've been charging routine inspections fees now in that marketplace for 2 years solid. And in that time, as far as I'm aware, all their rivals are still not charging, and it hasn't made a difference. Okay, now I was training 3 BDMs in Sydney. Same thing. All of their rivals weren't charging inspection fees, and the BDMs were concerned. Darren, we don't think we're going to get this. Owners aren't going to pay. No one's ever charged these fees before, but they were willing to listen. They had a positive mindset. We did the training, and at the end of it, the BDMs were sent out, and guess what? 2 of them were signing up every property at full fees, including inspection fees. But the third BDM was still struggling. And I looked at their report and they said not getting full fees because owners won't pay the routine inspection. It's like, okay, well, the problem we've got here now is the other 2 have proven that this isn't a market issue. Owners aren't resisting. It's a mindset issue because the 2 other BDMs were getting full fees. The issue was still what was going on in the head of that third BDM. So when I counseled them, and I knew what the problem was, that third BDM was still holding to, what's the management fee for? They were thinking that routine inspection fees were a rip-off and should be covered by the management fee. So when I did retraining again and showed to him, that was simply his opinion. He came on board. We ironed out that kink in the wheel. We got a really round wheel, and that whole team, all 3 BDMs, have now been doing it for 2 years straight in a marketplace where no one else is charging for routine inspections. Okay, so is it market resistance or is it mindset resistance? Okay, if you're telling me right now that it's market resistance, politely and respectfully, you're wrong. All right, and you just need to go out with confidence. Just pretend like you've always charged inspection fees and go and prove what I'm saying is actually correct. Let me know. I'd love to hear your results. Okay, moving on. Now, I was teaching this also in Adelaide, and there was a new property manager from the Barossa Valley. She'd only been in the industry a few weeks, hadn't been in the industry long enough to develop the big butts. She didn't know otherwise. And this is why she did really, really well. She went out and started charging an ingoing inspection fee. I'd never seen anyone in South Australia actually go and do it. She called me up, said, Darren, I'm getting it every time. There you go. Why? Because she hadn't had enough experience yet to develop that big butt mindset. Oh, but Darren, what's the management fee for? Even what's the leasing fee for? The leasing fee is supposed to cover that. She didn't know otherwise, so she just went out and signed it up. Again, owners aren't resisting. It's our mindset that resists. Okay, and also brings to mind another agency that I've been working with in Northwest Sydney that has been charging an ingoing inspection or a property condition report now for a number of years, and no one else in the area is charging it. I know that because I've done the secret shopping, or our team's done the secret shopping in all of Sydney. We know what's going on. And he said, Darren, they always sign. No one questions. It's never a problem. It doesn't matter if the rivals are charging it or not. It always gets charged. Okay. All right. So really us thinking that owners won't pay, it's a wrong mindset that I'm encouraging you to correct and actually delete. It's a little bit like the Y2K bug. If you're old enough, you remember there was all this hoo-ha before the year 2000, leading up to the 31st of December 1999, that when the clock resets to a new century, lots of things are going to blow up, things are going to be a problem, things are going to go clunk, we're going to go into your technology stone age. And there was a lot of problems. The government spent a lot of money on it, going out there, preparing businesses. And when the 31st of December 1999 came about and the clock ticked midnight, nothing happened. We had this mindset and this overcaution that turned into zero. This is exactly the same thing. You think owners are going to be resistant. It's actually not true. Encourage you, get a bit of confidence, go out there, prove what I'm saying is right. Okay, now how long does it take to do inspections? Let's talk about routine inspections, for example. So with drive time, doing the, booking time, drive time, doing the inspection, doing the work that was generated because you were at the property anyway, and requests that need to be done and things that need to be followed up, all of that extra work, and then getting the report ready and sent to the owner. Well, how long? It takes about an hour. All right. So how much are you worth per hour if you had to charge at an hourly rate? Now, when I've got a room full of property managers and they put up their hands and they'll commonly get, 50, 60, $70 plus GST, just these silly, piddly little amounts. Let's talk about that. So how much does a cleaner or a lawnmower man, a gardener charge per hour? $40, $50. What about a plumber or electrician? You know, $90 to $100, $110. What about a geek to fix your computer? Well, bosses will say that's anywhere up to $200 an hour. Accountant is $300 plus an hour. A lawyer, $600 plus an hour. That is the truth. Now, with you, why would any agency say we're worth $50, $60, $70 an hour? It makes no sense. You've got so much more risk carrying than a lot of these professions here. All right. Now, if we say you have a rent roll of 500 properties and all of those properties sold for an average of $700,000 on the sales market, all right, we are looking at $350 million of other people's assets. You shouldn't be charging at an hourly rate like a cleaner, a gardener, or a handyman, or electrician, or a plumber, or even a geek. Right now, I'm not telling you what you need to be charging per hour, but doesn't that give you a different perspective on things? I'm hoping that it does. I'm leading this up to a point. What are you worth per hour? Because if I said to you, hey, why not charge $99 for a routine inspection? People are ready to hang me. I mean, in Adelaide, with Secret Shop, third of agents charge for a routine inspection, but most of those are charging fees like $33. I was charging $30 right back in 1997. It's just insane. It's just illogical and just doesn't make any financial sense to recharge that. And I'm thinking you should be angry at me, even suggesting $100. Now you charge what you like, but $100 is not a lot of money. Let's just continue with that. So, for example, a drippy tap. How much does a plumber charge to go and fix that? Well, they go to the property 15 minutes and you'll get a bill for $150 or whatever, and you'll pay it like that. And the owner will accept the charge like that. Why? Because that's what a plumber is worth. Well, what is an agent worth with the litigation, all the complex legislation and the licensing and the amount of asset that you're responsible for? Well, come on, people. You should be angry at me suggesting $100 or $90 or even $110. You're worth a lot more than that. And this is what owners are thinking about. They don't think like agents where owners won't pay and we're only charging $11, $22, $50. Come on, people. Okay, charge quality. All right, charge quality. Okay, now what we're seeing with dollars, with ingoing inspections of property condition reports, anywhere up to $400 or $450 for that. With a routine inspection, the maximum we've seen is actually about $199. And commonly 99, 110, 120. We're seeing a lot of agencies that we work with. Now, file inspection, we're currently challenging people to change their dialogue to calling it a tenant exit fee, because the tenant exit, right from where a tenant gives notice or you give notice to them, right through to the bond refund and all the work in between, well, the file inspection is just part of that. All right. And so right now we are coaching agents and they're going out, and if their leasing fee, for example, is 2 weeks rent plus GST, well, they're getting 1 week's rent plus GST for a tenant exit fee. And they're getting it like that because owners aren't really worried about it. Okay. So you charge what you like. All right. But that's what we're seeing out there. And with the right charges, you should be able to find $500, $600, $700 a year extra in fee income just from charging for inspections. You see, when you know that you're worth it and you believe that you're worth charging for inspections, well, firstly, you'll also work out what to say if you do ever get challenged. But if you believe it, and then you believe what you're worth, your clients will too. It's a transfer. It's like a candle with enthusiasm and confidence. You can just pass it on and the candle continues. Okay. It really is that easy. All right. So it really comes down to something else. It comes down to your confidence. You see, right back over 20 years ago, when I started with that rent roll, I was absolute rock solid confident that I was the best property manager in the Riverland, and therefore I haven't got a problem in charging the best fees. Now, I wasn't the biggest agent, but yet I grew the most, the momentum, and the amount of properties I was signing up didn't slow down, even when I was charging the most expensive fees in that market. I was charging a routine, I was charging an outgoing inspection. Nobody ever questioned me, And not once did my rivals ever charge an outgoing inspection, though another agent was charging for a routine, but no one else was. It didn't make any difference. You believe you're worth it, you will get it too. Okay, so here is the deal, that when you're confident that when you know what to say, if you get challenged with a discount, remember, everyone's going to ask you for a discount, and that what you have to offer, if you know deep down what you have to offer is better than your rivals, you won't have a problem in charging more. But when you know that you believe you're actually the same as them, because they do inspections or they process applications, and deep down you know you're no better than them and they're charging less than you, there's something in you that says you shouldn't be charging more. And you're then subconsciously inclined to match their fees. And therefore, if they're dropping their fees, you'll be inclined to do that too. That's why you've got to look radically different from your competitors, so you know deep down that you're better than your competitors with your offerings. So we move to competing with service and value, and no longer wanting to compete on fee. We are competing, but not on fee. Okay, moving on. So comes down to knowing your script. So when someone asks for a discount, you can confidently respond, and also having standout effective points of difference, what I call positions of strength. Because when you know that you're better, and your prospects can see that, they're going to be happy to pay your fee. And you can be charging more than your rivals and you won't have a problem with it. The issue is if when you're the same as your competitors and you're not doing anything different, no standout points difference, that's when you run into trouble. And that's why your rivals are discounting, because that's the only thing that they can come up with that separates themselves and makes them look different from their rivals to win the business and impress the prospect. You've got to impress the prospect to use you, but don't do it with discounting. Use it with something else. Now, never choose discounting as a point of difference. And here's why. It's the most expensive way to try to impress new clients. So you got to know the full cost to your business. So let's look at this quick math here. The rent is $600 a week and you give a 1% discount. That's $6 per week, $312 a year. Now, if you keep that property for 5 years before the owner sells or they move back in, well, that's $1,560. But if you did that on 30 properties in a year, 30 properties in a year, and you kept those for 5 years, that's $46,800. I know of no other point of difference out there is as expensive as choosing that one, and we automatically choose that one when we're not able to go and put any other point of difference into place. You see, when your client can't see a difference, they will then reactively focus on your fee and ask for a difference. And that's the pressure that you get. So what do we do? Take a look at Inspection Express. Alex is just going to come in shortly, and he's going to show you their software platform on how you can show this to prospects in a listing presentation, or it could be send them information as part of your listing package to show them how different you are from the other rivals that you have in the area, particularly around how you're going to protect the property with property condition. This stuff is absolute wow factor. Check it out and make sure you've got your details on the screen here. Make sure that you go and get in contact with Alex and ask for a demo so you can have a look at it for yourself. Let's take a look.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Darren. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the point of difference that you can offer through our Inspection Express and the 360 tours. So what Darren mentioned earlier about having that point of difference is super important, obviously, for being able to introduce a charge and when you're pitching for that new business. So essentially, the biggest one for landlords is a vacate. And with Inspection Express, we've got that side-by-side entry and exit vacate inspection that you can conduct. That just gives them a lot of peace of mind at the end of the day to ensure that the property is remaining in good condition. And for landlords as well, that peace of mind is worth any amount of money at the end of the day, especially if they're out of area landlords, if they're landlords who live overseas, if they were owner occupiers previously, to be able to go through their property and actually walk through it in a virtual tour and see that side by side of that entry and exit is super valuable to them. So that's something that I would be using as a huge point of difference against your competitors, especially if you are wanting to charge. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually share my screen to my Inspection Express app, and I'm going to show you how you actually conduct that exit inspection with that side-by-side comparison. So I'm just going to share that through now. And what's really important as well with this is the fact that it's super easy for you to actually do this inspection. So it's one thing to have that point of difference, but it's a whole nother thing as well to actually be able to do it quite easily and save yourself a huge amount of time when doing it. Just connecting through to my screen. So what you can see here is I've actually taken a 360 photo with my 360 camera in my entrance hall. And what it's done is it's actually pulled across the 360 photo that I've taken in my entry inspection. I can then scroll around and I can see over the top embedded items from my entry inspection in this little box just here. And then I can actually do a direct comparison with my entry and exit. So if there's a difference, so say for example, it's a different room, so there's a difference in the floorboards here. If there is a difference, all I have to do is click the compare button on the bottom left-hand corner. Then I will select the floor coverings and it will actually take a screen grab of that section. And then I can add my comment in about being discolored. What it will then do is it will actually embed that over the top of your 360 image. So it's literally as simple as getting your 360 camera, popping it in the middle of the room, taking the photo, going onto this screen, and just looking for the differences. So as a property manager, you're actually making your job a lot easier, which is super important. But then, of course, that point of difference comes across to your landlords. So when you actually finalize that inspection and you send it to your landlords, and this is where your huge point of difference comes in handy, is you actually generate this report here. So if I just hop to my desktop, sorry. Amazing. Yeah, so as you can see here, this is a URL that you can copy and paste and send that through to your landlords. They can then scroll through and they can zoom in and zoom out and see if there's any differences in the property. So as you can see here, there's a hole in there in the cupboard, and I can actually pull up that side-by-side comparison screenshot. I can then, as my landlord, zoom into my entry inspection if I just want to see the entry inspection, or I could go into my exit as well. But of course, that side-by-side is super important. And then they can actually click through each section and they can see all of your comments. So from a landlord, I don't even have to attend the property anymore if I'm in the area, or if I live overseas, I just log onto my iPad or my iPhone or whatever device I have, and I can actually walk through my property and ensure that it's been kept in good condition. So you're actually providing those landlords that ability to do it from the comfort of their own homes, which again is why you can introduce a charge with this particular feature. So it's offering that. What it's also offering is that ability for you to minimize disputes. So when you are pitching for new business, you can say, you know, by having our 360 inspections and our side-by-side comparison with the entry and the exits, it's actually been proven to reduce disputes at end of tenancy, because it's giving you a crystal clear picture of any issues and it's removing the gray area out of disputes. What it's also doing is if the dispute does go to NCAP, it's allowing you to provide sufficient evidence quite quickly and easily to the NCAP members for them to make a fairer and easier judgment. So it's actually allowing your tribunal win rate to increase as well, because it's removing the gray area from any arguments. So it's a huge point of difference for your landlords. And at the end of the day, you know, landlords are willing to pay for something that is giving them something. You know, you're offering them something in return for a charge by having this particular technology, which again is super important to have. Now, as we mentioned a bit earlier, with the Inspection Express 360, we have actually now introduced the 360 AI. So I'm just going to give you a quick demo of that 360 AI because it's a huge time saver for property managers. And so I'm just going to hop in now and share my screen. Awesome. Okay, so as you can see here, I've taken any overall photos of water meter readings, etc. But I've also got my 360 image that I've captured as well. All I need to do is click on the little wand at the top left-hand corner, and it will now read all of the images in all of the areas and start generating my comment. So this is a live demonstration of the AI comment generation. So what this has done is it's taken your inspections that usually take 2 hours to conduct for your ingoings, and it's reduced them down to about 30 minutes, and it's actually making them more accurate. And as you can see here, it's read the water meter reading, it's read the air conditioning unit, it's actually popped the model number in, and it's continuing it all for the other areas as well. So if we hop to our living room, also done the same thing. It's still generating for our kitchen, but it's a huge time saver. So it's done. It's done all of the comments for all of my report. So Darren, that's pretty much what I wanted to show in terms of the point of difference with your side-by-side of your entry and your exit, as well as that 360 AI as that time-saving component. But with the 360, it's been that huge time saver at the end of the day, and it's offered that point of difference, which has also been super important. What it's also done is it's offered a point of difference for your routine inspections and your entry inspections, of course, as well as your exits. So it's an all-round point of difference that you can start to pitch when you're wanting to charge for those inspections as well. That's everything. Thank you very much. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to myself or the team. What I'll also do is I'll send through an example of the Exit 360 comparison to all of the attendees today. So that way you can see for yourselves and you can look at that in your own time. And if you do have any questions or you do want a bit of a further demo, just let us know and we'll be happy to help. Thanks very much, guys.
Okay, so again, an amazing point of difference. And I promise you now, I'm not here to tell you what Inspection Express pricing is. Go and find out for yourself. But I promise you it's a lot cheaper than discounting. All right. Don't ever choose discounting. You want to compete on service and added value, not on fees. To do that, you've got to be aggressively, deliberately different with your points of difference than your rivals if you're going to do that. Otherwise, you're just going to have to discount. Okay. So what we've also got to get, we talked about having effective points difference, but now also you need to have a confident response when they ask the question. Now, you're not going to get asked about your inspection fees. I'm not going to say never, but every now and again you might. You just need to be ready for that. Now, before we get into it, I want to teach you the law of alternate cost to help you to understand these scripts you're about to see better. Now, my son, who was driving a car, L-plater with our Toyota Corolla, he went too close to a wheelie bin, smashed off the side mirror. The whole car was defectable. You couldn't drive it anymore. We had to take it off the road to get the mirror fixed. So one of his mates said, why don't you just call the car wreckers? So I did and called up the car wreckers, hoping to get a cheap part. They got on the computer and I could hear the tap, 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 tapping away. And the guy said, yep, no, we've got a left-hand side mirror. And I said, how much? And he said, $660. Oh my goodness me. I just about fell off my chair because for $600, that's probably what they paid for the entire wreckage. All right. But $660 for a secondhand side mirror that I can hold in my hands. I was floored. Anyway, so I thought, okay, well, it's going to be an insurance claim anyway. So I called up Toyota service and I said, how much for a new left-hand side mirror fully fitted? You know what they came back with? $1,300. And I realized that Wreckers Yard was simply looking at the new cost and just doing 50% because they understood the law of alternate cost. You see, what was originally expensive with that secondhand part now was cheap compared to the alternate cost. It was put in light of the alternate cost and now looks like a bargain. And it's much cheaper that way. But had I not sought out the alternate cost, we're then at risk of it being expensive. And your owners, when they're looking at your fees, if they're saying it too expensive, you've got to put it in light of the alternate cost. And what's the alternate cost? Is an agent that doesn't charge for those things, that doesn't do their ingoing inspections properly, or doesn't do their routine inspections thoroughly enough, or doesn't do them at all, or a final inspection that hasn't been done right. It's going to cost the owner a lot more than your fee. All righty. And this is why we've got these trash properties here, or a drug lab or something like that. This is the alternate cost the owner will face. You simply have to have some good horror stories to be able to explain it. So let's have a look at the ingoing inspection or the property condition report scripts here. Now, this is taken straight out of my book, the PM Fee Script Secrets. Well, just on the left here, Mr. Smith, thanks for bringing this up. And they've just asked, well, why are you charging this when your rivals don't? So we are well aware of what our competitors are charging, and it's common that they don't charge at all. And however, when we get properties transferred to us from another agent because the property owner has been unhappy with their service, you know what the common cause is? It's usually a dispute about the condition of the property. And in most cases, it occurred because the ingoing inspection report wasn't thoroughly complied, or lacking backup photos and video. And even in some cases, the inspection wasn't done at all. And there's a pattern to all of this. And that is that we see these types of issues are common with agencies that don't charge or charge less for these important tenancy start inspections. And if they don't charge for it, then this tells you the value that they place on it. Importantly, the complications caused when this report isn't completed thoroughly and correctly can easily run into thousands of dollars, leaving you stressed, wishing you never went with a cheaper agency, using the law of alternate cost at the end there. Okay. All right. Now, let's talk about the outgoing inspection, or if you want to call it tenant exit. But again, owner says, well, the other agents aren't charging for it. Well, Mr. Smith, thanks for bringing that up. And we're well aware of what other competitors are charging, and it's common they don't charge anything at all. And however, when we have properties transferred to us from another agent because a property owner has been unhappy with their services, you know what the common cause is? Usually it's a dispute about the condition of the property, particularly with what is missed after a tenant moves out. Now you can see these scripts are very, very similar up to this point. Now, when the bond or security deposit is refunded, well, then there's no recourse with the tenant, or if the tenant is taken to task on the vacate condition issues and the agency hasn't done this final inspection thoroughly with detailed notes and comments and photos and even video, then this vagueness and lack of detail can result in a big amount of money that cannot be claimed against the tenant. They get off scot-free and walk away, and you're left fighting the agency for it. This is typically with an agent who doesn't value the final inspection process and the inspection report. And that's why you need to choose an agency like ours that highly values this process and charges a fee to give you a thorough service. So you may not need to go that deep with these words here, but you've got the words here that can help you. Let's have a look at the routine inspection. And I love this one here. It's very short. It's very sweet. It's easy to understand. Mr. Smith, thanks for bringing this up. And we're well aware of what our competitors are charging. And however, when we get properties transferred to us from another agent, and because the property owner has been unhappy with their service, you know what we find? Those other agents who are charging nothing are either not doing the inspections regularly enough, not thorough enough, or not at all. And we charge X dollars, which represents the time to do a thorough job. And I can show you a typical routine inspection report showing you the detail that we go into. So in this case here, this is where you show them your Inspection Express detailed ingoing inspection or PCR property condition report, or a detailed outgoing inspection, or of course a routine inspection. Now, when you've got those virtual tours that you were shown before, as the move in and the move out side by side, that's wow factor. Owners are not going to question a few piddly dollars, especially when it's $600 or $700 or $800 a week in rent. They're thinking about, I've got to have the property condition looked after. I've got to get the right tenant. Okay, that's what's ringing in their ears, not this fee thing. Alrighty. The point is, you're hardly going to have to use these scripts. Okay, because they're generally not even going to question. This is how you get inspection fees and make a big difference. So look, those scripts are out of my book, the PM Fee Scripts Secrets. Look, the book is free. We've paid for the printing. All you've got to do is pay for the shipping. Just go to stopdiscountingfees.com or just scan the code there. This is one of our most popular books. We've placed thousands of these books throughout, I think it's about 7 or 8 countries now. And everyone loves the book. It's a handy reference guide. You just pick and choose what you want out of it. There's up to 50 effective responses on fee objections, plus also a library of 34 different fees and fee charges. It's all in the book. Make sure you got it. Essential for any property manager's desk or BDM. Okay, now go to igtcentral.com for all of our books, all of our podcasts. It's all there. And some of the podcast sessions that we've got there, you can see the titles there. Some of the stuff we've already covered. Now, if you also want to talk about getting better fees for your business, whether it's increasing fees with new business or even increasing fees with your current clients and how to do that, that's what I've done for 20 years. That's what I specialize in. Book into my diary at getbetterfees.com. Happy to have a chat. Thanks so much. We really enjoy this here. And we just really appreciate your time. Reach out at any time. Take care.